Hey everybody, this is Lee Blue. I've got some. The topic for today is going from freelancing to consulting. And I've been getting some questions, and people just kind of respond either in this Facebook group or through the podcast or something. And they say, well, okay, well, what I can just change my title from freelancer to consulting or consultant, but what does that really mean? And how does that work? Like, can I just charge more because I have a new title? And of course, the answer to that is no. It's like you can't just change your name to from freelancer to consultant and just charge more while doing the same stuff that you did before. And there's a couple of things that we need to talk about in order to be able to bring all of this stuff to life together. And the first thing is just the roadmap as being a freelancer. So normally the way it all works, and you can see if this sort of sounds similar for you too, is a lot of times you either develop a really strong skill set because you took a course or went to school or something like that. But most of the time it's because you had a job working somewhere else, doing web development, web design, online marketing and stuff like that somewhere else. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, I want to go out on my own now because I'm really good at this. I've got experience now. And the guys that I'm work for, they're, for whatever reason, the relationship may be souring or whatever. And maybe you haven't really thought about the other things that the other people are doing. And then you kind of get into this situation where you can do the right skills, but you don't have the clients yet. But a lot of times you don't really notice that you don't have the right clients yet, because right when you first jump into freelancing, a lot of times you have a kind of like a social fabric that you can rely on, like people that you can tap into that are friends and family and people that you work out at the gym with or that you went to school with, or just you have this kind of social fabric. And a lot of times as you're going into this, people will sort of help out along the way. Like even if they don't need the help themselves, they'll say, oh yeah, my friend is really starting up his business. Let me send some leads that way. And that tends to give you a boost that will last for 6 months to a year. And so what that means is you'll be getting referrals kind of just landing in your lap for maybe up to a year. And so what that means is a lot of times people don't do any marketing, right? The leads just land in their laps for that first year, and they begin to think, this is great, this is going awesome, this will always happen. But then what ends up happening is all that stuff dries out, and you feel like you're kind of in this feast or famine cycle, and you don't really know where to go for more leads, because up until now, it just has landed in your lap, and you don't know what to do now. Now you're stuck. And that tends to be where everything falls apart for freelancers. And there's a couple of things in terms of the marketing side, because most people that I talk to spend very little time learning how to do any marketing. Like they know how to do the marketing skills, like they know how to do social media management, or they might be able to do SEO or something like that. But like marketing for themselves to get clients, or maybe even coming up with a specific strategy for their clients to get customers, a lot of times that's where things fall apart in terms of what the marketing strategy ought to be. And here's the big deal, because most freelancers, since they haven't been spending a lot of time doing the marketing, what they do end up being positioned just like everybody else, especially when it comes to WordPress, right? It's like one of the main things that I think we're all seeing is that the overall price of WordPress sites is just falling. And the reason for that is everyone's saying, I can build WordPress. I mean, we're on Facebook right now. Just go on Facebook and find any group that has anything to do with web design. And I bet you anything, you'll find somebody who'll build a WordPress site for $500 or less. Right? Go into Fiverr, go into Upwork, go anywhere you want. So the question is why? Why do the websites cost so much less now than before? And the reason is there's so many people who haven't put any effort into figuring out what to do to market themselves. And so they position themselves based on services. And they'll say, well, we do web design, or we do SEO, or we do social media management, or whatever it is. And of course, everybody says they do all of those things. And now the only way to make a difference is to lower your price. Well, we'll do it for cheaper than that guy. And then that guy says, well, we'll do it for cheaper than them. And then, and there we go. Now we're down to the situation where everybody builds $500 sites. In fact, I was talking to a guy this morning who builds sites for $125 off Fiverr. And he's happy about it because he's getting all these leads and stuff. And it's like, how can you be happy building sites for $125 when you're stressed out all the time and you don't know what to do, and even with that you're only bringing in like $5,000 a month. You're completely maxed out, completely hitting the limit of where you are, and that's it, right? And so it's not, so why don't you raise your price? He said, well, if I raise my price, I'll lose out to everybody else doing all this stuff for cheaper. And that is the problem that we're at today. So how do you fix it? Like, what's the switch? Like, where do you go to make the next step for your business? And that's the point of today's talk. It's like, go from freelancer to consultant. And what that means is when your clients hire you, they want to hire you for what you think, right? They want to hire you for your advice. They want to get consultation from you as opposed to implementation. So 50 sites for $5,000 total. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. It's like it's a no winning deal to do that. But the switch is, how do you go into consultant mode? And that means you have to get people to hire you for what you think, for your consultation, for your advice, for your ability to help them get into a position that they would not be able to get in had it not been for you. And the way that you can tell if you're doing that is you can say, well, what if I remove myself from the equation and put in, another guy doing the same kind of stuff for cheaper, maybe even, would the same results be forthcoming, right? And that's how you can begin to see is like, am I really offering consulting advice or am I just doing what I'm told? And if you find that you're just doing what you're told, then it's going to be really hard for you to raise your pricing. So then you end up having two situations, right? Well, what do? Do I reach back out to my old clients and try to somehow make those relationships more profitable? Or do I find new clients that are coming to me from a different perspective, coming to me thinking that I'm going to provide consultation in addition to technical implementation? So what do? Do I get my old clients to pay more, or do I find new higher paying clients, or is there some way to do both? And my recommendation is to try to do both, right? There's no reason to, in my opinion, and I know there's people that differ in this, but some people say it's really hard, almost impossible, to change the way past clients think about you because they've kind of already pigeonholed you into being the web guy, right? It's like, well, anytime we need a thing done, then, there you go. Or maybe they invite you into their Trello account and say, do these bugs, fix these bugs or whatever, and you just kind of are the tech guy. Or you can try to, you can change that. You can try to change that. So instead of just implementation person, you're now also consultation person. Or the other approach is, well, what do you do to get better clients? And my opinion is, why not try to do both at the same time? And I've got some strategies for that as well, which we'll go into here in just a second. But I don't really like the idea of just like the nuclear option of blowing up your old business and then starting a brand new one, at least in terms of your lead generation and your marketing. And instead, I like to try to ease into it. That way everything doesn't fall apart all at once and it seems way less risky and you're not burning bridges by not doing work for the old people anymore. It's like all of the things that seem like they would be scary and bad kind of go away if you sort of do both things at the same time. And so what that means is you kind of have to have two mindsets. Like, okay, continue to serve the clients you already got, but how do you make them more valuable? And then at the same time, what can I do to get better clients where they automatically just see me as a consultant from the beginning? And the trick is, starting with the old clients, the trick to get the old clients to see you more as a consultant rather than just an implementation person is to do something disruptively interesting. Right? Make a suggestion. Say something to your client that is going to be disruptively interesting. Those are the two characteristics of what you want to say. It has to be disruptive and interesting. Because if it's not if it's not disruptive, it's just interesting. It's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, that's kind of cool. If it's only disruptive, then it could potentially be, stepping on their toes and kind of, getting out of your lane and into theirs and that kind of a thing too. So it's got to be those two. It's got to be disruptive and interesting in order for them to think, oh, that shook me up, right? Now I'm thinking about you differently now, right? That's what you're looking for. So for example, if you have been managing social media for a client, for example, right? And they're just kind of giving you what to say, and then you're kind of posting it all over the internet and kind of hoping things work out. And then you maybe you've been doing that for a while, right? Like I hired a social media manager a couple of years ago, and that was basically what she did. She would just think of stuff to say, or maybe, pick some stuff out of things that I had said and just kind of post it out there and hope people look at it and maybe engage with it or maybe share it or something like that. But there was no strategy behind it other than just get out there. So if that's you, if you're doing something like that, what if you then said, hey, in addition to doing what we've been doing, what if we put together a social media campaign where we actually had more of an intention behind it? So we posted things online, but we did that because we wanted them to, click a particular link and land on a specific landing page. And once they get to that landing page, maybe we start building an email list out of it so that we have a more direct way to actually channel information into these clients. And in order to get the email list going, I thought that this would be a couple of interesting ideas for lead magnets to actually get the email addresses in the first place. And then once we do that, then here's a sequence of emails that we might be able to send to nurture those leads into eventually actually booking a call with you. And so rather than just willy-nilly posting stuff on social media, now we've kind of developed somewhat of a funnel, right? Some sort of a sequence that actually ends in phone calls rather than just shouting out into the void, right? So say something like that, right? And that's going to be disruptive because it's like, that's not what we were doing. We were just willy-nilly posting. And now we've got some strategy, some structure to it. So that's disruptive. And it's interesting because now they're thinking, yeah, you know what? It doesn't really make sense to just post stuff online and hope people share it and somehow that means we get calls. Wouldn't it be better to put a more solid structure in place that actually leads people into scheduling a call for us? And you've also got some pre-qualifications going on, right? So like if the people are clicking the links, then that means they think the topics are interesting, and right on down the road you're kind of learning and kind of filtering out the types of clients that you don't feel like you're going to be able to serve the best and attracting the ones that you know that you can. And so that way, when you actually get the call, you have more qualified leads calling you, right? So say stuff like that. Say something like that. And that's going to be something that's disruptive and interesting. And then now all of a sudden the client's going to say, oh, can you come in and talk with us so that we can, flesh this out in more detail? Can you come into a strategy meeting with us where we talk about these things? And then you, of course, would say, absolutely, I would love to do that. Because now you see what happened. What happened is they went from thinking we're just going to hire that guy as the technical fingers that type things, and that switched into, I want to know what you think about these things. And of course, that's what you want. That's the difference between freelancing and consulting. And I know a lot of you guys do this already to some degree. Like we've talked on the phone, like a lot of you guys, what will you do is you'll do these strategy sessions for free. You just don't charge for it. Like I would say maybe 1 in 5 people that I tend to talk to already do a lot of this consulting, but they're just not charging for it. And oftentimes not even it's not just being completely undervalued, both by you and your client. And therefore it's not really catching fire for you. But that's the big thing, is to reach out to your past clients with something disruptively interesting that you've thought about and has some sort of an outcome tied to it, right? So it's not just interesting because it's, fascinating to know that you could post to Twitter in addition to LinkedIn. It's interesting because it's like, yeah, that really would get the kind of outcomes we're looking for, right? So tie the outcome into it. So that's what you would do with existing clients to get them to change their perception of you. I was just listening to one guy I was talking a few minutes ago that I was listening to, and he's like, get out of the friend zone. So that's how you get out of the friend zone into a more significant relationship with your client. So that's one half. The other half is, well, what about the new clients? How do you do that? How do you actually just right out of the gates establish a relationship with the client where they're hiring you for your insight and for your consulting, not just your technical skills? So while on one hand, you're doing disruptively interesting things with your past clients, for future clients, what you want to do is you want to start marketing outcomes rather than services, right? Because the way that you probably got into the situation with the clients you've already got is you marketed yourself as someone who provides technical services like social media management, as we just talked about in that example. And so that means they're going to say, okay, well, we'll figure out the social media strategy, and then we'll tell you what to post and where to post it. And you just kind of are almost like our little robot that kind of does those things. And so instead of getting more clients in that context, what you want to do is you want to market your outcomes. Like, what can I help you do? Like what are the things that I can create for you in terms of business results? And then market yourself as someone who does that. And that oftentimes involves picking a particular market of some sort and figuring out, how do I leverage the skills and the knowledge and any sort of past experience, life experience, whatever. How do I leverage all of those types of things into a package that ultimately delivers a really cool result? More test drives in your auto dealership, more get a dozen listings as a real estate agent, or build a 6-figure private catering business, even if you don't have a restaurant. Here's the marketing plan for that. Build a 6-figure photography business. Those are the kinds of outcomes that you want to start marketing yourself as. And so you have to drill down. You have to pick a particular thing. So once you do that, then people are going to be like, wow, that's exactly what I was like. How do you build a six-figure catering business if you don't have a restaurant? Because that's exactly what I want to do. I've got a complete chef's kitchen. I've been a chef for all these years, but with everything that's been going on lately with the pandemic and everything, I haven't been able to do the kind of work that I used to do. But now that things are reopening, I would love to get back and going again, and would love to have a great catering business. How do I do that? Right? And then they're going to hire you right off the bat, because who else knows? Nobody else is positioning that type of an outcome, right? Like, go around and look, and that's a very rare thing, but there's a lot of people that want to do that. And so that's how you do it. So you figure out an outcome that you know how to create for people, and then market that outcome. So the end result behind all of that, so whether you're upgrading past clients by doing something disruptively interesting and presenting that to them, or whether you go into marketing your outcomes to try to get clients coming in as higher ticket clients just right off the bat, either of those two things means that you basically need to get better at marketing, right? So it's like, if all you've got going on is your technical skill set, and you aren't focused on developing any sort of marketing skills or marketing plan for yourself or for your clients, you got to ramp that up. And if you don't ramp that up, you're sunk. Like, you can't make this happen if you don't do that. The only viable option, if you're not interested in marketing, is to get hired by someone else and the other person does the marketing, right? Or maybe hire a marketer. But most of the people that I talk to aren't really at the stage in their business where they can afford to hire someone who's going to do a good job marketing for them. It's too expensive. And so what that means is you have to get hired by a larger agency, and then they do the marketing and they just feed you the work. But if that's not what you want, and you actually want to have your own business, you got to get better at marketing. But the good news is it can happen really quick, because you, generally speaking, the way that we do it in DoubleStack is you usually need like 5 or 6 clients to get up into the 6 figures, right? So most of the packages that we put together, like that I help the other DoubleStackers with, are like these $15,000 projects and up. At least $10,000. In fact, I even have an award, right? I've got this trophy that I hand out to people when we get the $10,000 projects going. You get the DoubleStack 5-figure family trophy. And so what that means is, even if you're at the bare minimum, like even if you're just at the $10,000 range, if you had 10 clients, you'd be at $100,000, right? So it's like 10 clients. And usually the price points are more like 15,000 and up. And so that means it's more like 6 or 7 clients or whatever. So you don't need a lot of clients. So that means it can happen really quick. And what if your goal is, hey, I'm already making $5,000. Wouldn't it be great if I could make another $5,000 and get up to 10? And if that sounds like you, well, you're only looking at like 4 clients, right? If each client's worth $15,000, you're looking at 4 clients and add an extra $60,000 a year to you, which would be extra $5,000 a month. And so who can afford that? Like, what kind of clients can spend $15,000 on marketing? It's like pretty much anybody who makes about $100,000 a year or more, right? So you don't have to find clients that are making millions of dollars or that have 50 employees or anything large like that. You're looking for regular businesses that have a gross income or gross revenue of at least $100,000. Now, that doesn't mean they pay themselves. I'm talking about the gross revenue for the business, because that is the number that you use to calculate what you should reinvest into your marketing on. And I think, as is common knowledge, if you are in business and you want to scale up, you probably should be investing at least 15, maybe even closer to 20% of your gross revenue into your marketing. And that puts you right at that $100,000 per year income goal. And so you're talking about, gosh, everybody, right? You're talking about anybody who's serious enough to try to build their own full-time business for themselves, like real estate agents, chiropractors, auto detailing businesses, lawn care services, roofing companies, garage door sales, window replacement. It's anybody's, right? All of those types of businesses are out there and need this level of help. And the way that you get into these price points is not by telling them that websites cost $15,000. You'll never sell a website at that. If you want to get into the high ticket consulting, you have to get better at marketing. That's the bottom line, because if you get better at marketing, you get 2 huge benefits. One, you get recurring revenue out of it because you wanted to keep doing the marketing over and over. You got something to offer after you launch the website. And 2, you move into value pricing, not service pricing or hourly rate. Gosh, you got to get away from hourly rates. Hourly rates and fixed prices for services, those 2 things are what have caused the problem that we're in right now with this price race to the bottom where everything's so cheap. And so to get out of that, you got to get into value pricing. So you put your value, like the value that people are investing in you, next to the value that you create for them, and then make sure that they're getting, at least double, maybe even 10 times what they've invested with you in terms of the outcome that they get for themselves. And that ends up being the solution. But in order to do that, you have to get better at marketing, right? You've got to be, I often refer to it as being the marketing ninja, right? So I can just show you how to do that. Like, how do you build better landing pages? How do you build an email list? Once you have the email list, how do you know what to say? Who do you say it to? How do you segment the list up to make sure that you're saying the right stuff to the right people? How do you get them to open the emails? What should the email subject be? It's like, these are all things that we talk about a lot so that you can get these clients coming in. And once you do, you only need 5 to 10 clients to add an extra 6 figures to your business, right? So it's not a long runway to be able to pull all this together, but it is you can't do it at all if you don't get better at marketing, right? If you just say, we do web design, we do hosting, we do maintenance, we do SEO, we do Facebook ads, we do like whatever all the services are. If you just say all that same stuff, you're exactly like everybody else. You're just saying all the stuff everybody else is saying. And then the only real way to differentiate yourself tends to be on price. And that means the price keeps going down. And now look where we are. I mean, it's just obvious. Just look around. Everything's cheap. So the flip is, flip it over to the value pricing side. Say, hey, hire me because I know how to do this for you, which means you probably need to pick a market. You need to make sure you understand how to get good results for people in that market. You need to figure out like a whole business in a box concept, like not just one service, but a package of services. And then you can do one of the two approaches that we just talked about, which is you can take the past clients that you or the current clients that you're already working with and up level them so that you have more profitable relationships by doing that disruptively interesting thing that we just talked about. Or you could position yourself for new clients that really need help in that space. And my recommendation is do both at the same time and then get there even faster. So that's the idea. And it's literally the path from going from freelancing to consulting. And that's how it works. And DoubleStack is all about doing that. So if you feel like what we've talked about today is kind of resonating with what you've been experiencing, and especially with people who start out their own business, they feel like the leads are just landing in your lap. You're not really doing anything. And what that is like, it's like the first 12 months, maybe not quite 12 months, 6 to 12 months of your own business, you kind of get that social push. People want to support you. People want to give you referrals. People like what you're doing. It's exciting. It's kind of on the front of their mind. Oh yeah, you got to see my friend Ben or whatever. Like he just started this new business. You go work with him. He could really use your help. But then after about 6 to 12 months, that dries up. You for a couple reasons. You kind of fall out of the forefront of people's minds, so they stop helping. You already built websites for the people that you already know. There's the kind of that social network kind of gets smaller, and then eventually goes away. And then you're sitting there thinking, well, gosh, what do I do now? I don't have the leads I used to have. I can't charge the rates I used to have. I'm saying the same stuff as everybody else. What should I do? And then most people just start lowering their prices. And of course, once you do that, that's the kiss of death, right? It's like you can't win like that. You're never going to be able to get up into the 6 figures like that, or even close. You'll probably tap out at somewhere around 40 to 50,000 per year, and you'll be working really, really hard. So if you want to double that, if you want to get up to more like 100 to 120,000, you move into value pricing as a consultant, get yourself 5 to 10 clients, and that's the solution. So if you want to talk about what this looks like for you in your business, head on over to doublestack.net/call, and we'll get on the phone and talk about this one-on-one. It's a totally free call, and you really don't want to miss out on this opportunity, especially if you feel like the leads are drying up, you're kind of, you haven't done marketing before and you really want to, and you don't want to go back to being hired by somebody or whatever. It's if you really want your own business, you got to get better at marketing, both for your own sake, so that you're getting your own clients, but also so that you can move into this value pricing consultant mode with your clients to help them get customers. That's really the whole secret. And once you do that, then you get into a situation where you've got all it takes. So you've got the strategies to bring in leads. You've got the tech skills to implement them. You've got the design skills so that everything looks awesome and professional. You've got the whole thing. So somebody said this is so true. And it is. It's not a complicated thing. It's hard. It is a hard thing to do. A lot of times, just even trying to figure out how to narrow down and pick your market, pick that niche market, that can be a hard step. Figuring out, how do I present myself as an insider within that market, so it doesn't just sound like I'm a web designer trying to cram down websites on doctors because doctors can afford expensive sites. You got to do better than that, right? You got to actually do something disruptively interesting. And then boom, the next thing you know, you start landing these high ticket clients. I send you one of these trophies. Everybody high fives you. It's a lot of fun. So head on over to doublestack.net/call. Find a good time on my calendar. We'll get together one-on-one, and you really don't want to miss out on this opportunity, because this has huge implications for the future of your business, the lifestyle that you're creating, the way that you support your family and yourself. It's like, this is the real deal, guys. So if you want to get into this kind of high ticket consulting, let's talk about that and get you on the right track to make sure that you've got the marketing skills that you need, just in terms of the raw skill set. You've got the strategy and vision behind it, but also, how do you actually meet with clients? Like, what do you say? Like, what does it sound like to have a high ticket conversation with a client, as opposed to what does it sound like to have a low ticket implementation service driven conversation? And so we'll kind of talk about that in the context of the types of clients that you're looking to work with as well. So head on over to doublestack.net/call. Find a time on my calendar. We'll get together and talk, and it will be awesome. So all right, guys, doublestack.net/call, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.